back to school again with Professor Alex. Today we are talking about fractions. We're going to add and subtract fractions on a easy, intermediate, and advanced scale because this actually gets harder the further you go. First thing we want to understand is the denominator is always on the bottom of the fraction and the numerator is always on the top of the fraction. Now, if we're going to add and subtract fractions, we're going to start with something easy, like 3 over 5 plus 4 over 5. Now, when the denominator is the same, you simply add the numerator from both fractions to get a larger numerator, and the denominator remains the same. So 3 plus 4 is 12. And this is going to be 5 because this is carried over in this direction. So your answer, 3/5 plus 4/5 equals 12/5. That is your answer there. Now, we're going to try something a little bit more challenging. I'm going to write this 12/5 over here to the side because we're going to use this again. And this one is going to be 4 plus 2 over 3 and 4. So your 4/3 plus 2/4. In this scenario, your denominators are not the same. So before you can add the two fractions together, you must first have a common denominator. Now, in order to find a common denominator, the first thing you want to do is see your multiples that are equivalent to both denominators. I recommend that you get the lowest multiple equivalent to the denominators because when you multiply, they tend to get very large. So with 3 and 4, the lowest number is 3 times 4, which is 12. Which means that you're going to multiply 4 times 3, and you're going to multiply 3 times 4 to get 12. Now, what you do to the denominator, you must also do to the numerator. So now you're going to multiply 2 times 6, 2 times 3 to get 6, but you're going to multiply 4 times 4 to get 16. Now 16 plus 6 is 22 over 12. Now, I'm going to show you something, and then we're going to get into something a little bit more complicated. And that's why I'm going to show you this first, and then we're going to do that. Your 12 over 5. You have 5 5s in 12. So when you're subtracting this, it would be to equal 2/5. Now, why did I do this? Because 5 over 5 equals 1. There are 2 5s in 10, so it will be 5 times 2. But in this scenario, because you're getting a whole number, it's going to be 2 over 1. So when you multiply this straight across, this is going to get into the next chapter. 5 over 5 times 2 over 1 equals 10 over 5, which equals 2. Now, the reason why I showed you that is because the 12 minus 10 equals 2/5. See? And then the two whole numbers that you pulled out of this improper fraction turns into a whole number over here. So this is going to be written as 2 and 2/5. Now we're going to do the 22 over 12. So that you kind of understand it, because I know I probably didn't explain that the way you could have gotten it on the first try, but that's okay. When you have 22 over 12, you cannot get two 12s out of 22, because 12 plus 12 is 24. 12 times 2 is 24, which is less than 22. You cannot put an even number into this to reduce it, because the 3 would not go into 22 evenly, because that's 21 with a remainder. 6 doesn't go into these evenly. 8 doesn't go into these, to both the top and the bottom evenly. What you do to the top, you also have to do to the bottom. So the best thing that you can do with this one is to reduce it. And the first thing you're going to want to do is reduce it by half. So half of 22 is 11. Half of 12 is 6. Now another way you can do this, and I'm going to do it on both sides so that you understand it, is that if there's one 12 over 12 out of this, so if you took 22 minus 12, you would get 10, right? Now that means that you're going to have subsequently 1 12 over 12, which is 1. So 12 over 12 equals 1. And that would give you 1 and 10 over 12. Now you can still reduce this by dividing it by 2. And you would have 1 and 5 over 6. Now, with your 11 over 6, you can't reduce that any lower. However, if you took the 6 out over here, you would have 5, right? So you would have 6 over 6, which would be plus 5 over 6, because that's what would have equaled the 11 over 6. Now 6 over 6 is 1. So 1 plus 5 over 6 is 1 and 5 over 6. Notice how this answer and this answer are the same. This is how you add fractions, which means that you should have been familiar with multiplying and dividing from the previous chapter in order to be able to understand the basics of adding and subtracting fractions. Now I'm going to do one more for you. Actually, I think I'm going to do a couple more, because now I want to subtract fractions with you. So let's make a little bit of room. And let's do 9 over 4 minus, let's say, 6 over 3. Before we do that one, I want to also get you to do one a little bit easier, which would be 8 over 3 minus, let's say, 7 over 3. Now, subtraction is a lot like addition. If your denominators are the same, all you have to do is work on the numerator. 8 minus 7 is 1. So 8/3 minus 7/3 is 1/3. Okay? So now for the hard one, you have uncommon denominator. So now you need to find a common denominator. Again, with this one, the common denominator will be 12, which means that you need to multiply the 4 times 4, 4 times 3, and 3 times 4. You got to pay attention to this because everybody makes mistakes, and when you make mistakes, you end up with the wrong results. But whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So 4 times 3 is 12, 9 times 3 is 27, 3 times 4 is 12, 6 times 4 is 24. And then you subtract. 27 minus 24 is 3 over 12. Now, this is the interesting part. This can be reduced. So, depending on if you're in a 5th grade class, this would be the answer. But if you're in a 6th or 7th grade class, this can be reduced. Why? Because 3 is an even number that can be divided by 3. And 3 is an odd number that can be divided by 3. I'm thinking ahead here. 12 is an even number that can also be divided by 3. So whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom, which means that this can be reduced to 1/4. So ironically, if we make a little bit more room here for this, you can get a test question where 9/4 minus 6/3 can equal 1/4. And that's all we have for today. Enjoy your recess. Thank you.